Hello, and welcome to Chicago Humanities Festival and the Residents Association of Greater Englewood live on YouTube for this neighborhood check-in with Inglewood. I'm Tiff Beatty, I'm Director of Programming at Chicago Humanities Festival, and it is my great pleasure to introduce Tonika Johnson and Asiaha Butler, two of the co-founders of the Residents Association of Greater Englewood. Thank you and welcome. I also want to shout out our captioner, Joe Gale, whose face we can't see right now, but is here with us virtually, typing as we speak in order to make this program more accessible. So we'll try to speak slowly and clearly for everyone out there who is utilizing those services. We also want to acknowledge all of you who are watching this right now live on YouTube. We want to encourage your participation throughout the conversation and remind you that you can add your questions and comments in the YouTube chat box, and we'll respond to them as we can during the conversation. We may save a few for the end as well, so thanks for your patience. We know we have folks tuning in from all over the city, including Englewood, so I want to shout you all out. And feel free to jump in and hop in here as we talk. And also, we have folks around the city and maybe even the country and the world. And so we want to make sure that we thank you and welcome you all to the Chicago specific conversation. And we hope that it's relevant, interesting, and we welcome you to join us. You might even meet a neighbor if you're in Englewood, and we hope that you continue this conversation. So we'll go ahead and remind you also to log into the chat if you want to participate in that. So I want to start though. This is a conversation that is framed as a neighborhood check-in this evening, but we really also want to check in with you two as humans. Tonika, we know that you're a visual artist, photographer, creator of Folded Map. Asiaha, we know you're executive director at R.A.G.E, and you do great work, community developer, investor, but you're also two people just going through, a very scary and challenging time. And, we all are here with you. And so we'd love to hear a little bit about you. For those who don't know, tell us about yourselves and your relationship to each other. And also why you're together right now. I have to admit, I'm a little jealous. I'm quarantining here in my apartment. You guys are hanging out. So what's going on?
I don't know where to start. Well, first of all, we're doing well. We are. We unfortunately had to adapt to a new world that we was not preparing for. We did not plan for. We did not strategize for. All we know is that we were doing our regular lives, and next thing you know, the news started hitting, and Tonika said, "Hey, I think we need to go to the store and get tissue." I'll never forget it. And I said, "Why?" And then she said, "We need to go right this second because it's about to be a lockdown." But we didn't know what that was and why that was happening. And so we immediately adjusted and then really have been together since that store run to today. And so if I get sick or if she gets sick, we know it's us who gave it to each other, because we have limited a lot of contact with a lot of other people and just been able to be in this space together for the last almost 45 days.
Yeah. And then also, because the work that we do is so intertwined, we have consistently been together. So like Asiaha was saying, literally the day where the lockdown was announced, we were in the car together and went to the grocery store just to get what we thought were essential items. So we have literally just, been together. She's been my only additional base outside of my living room in my home. So it's been helpful just as an individual to be able to have her friendship and her home as an outlet and a, kind of haven for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
We connected probably now over 12 years ago through the work. But I think the friendship and the sisterhood just flourished, outside of the work. And so with a devastating pandemic like this, we really relied on those friendships, really, really more than ever.
Yeah.
And so I always laugh with her and say I'm her Corona counselor, because sometimes, it's too much for her to handle and adjust to. And everybody goes through those phases where this state, this time, this moment could be a bit much. And I've been just trying to be, grounded with it and just helping people, get through it because it's not easy. It's not an easy task.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Did I hear 12 years? You all have been friends? Is
Yes.
that 12 years? Take us
Yeah.
back. How did you all meet, and how has the relationship evolved? Just so we can get to know you a little bit before we jump into the more serious stuff.
Yeah.
We met through a mutual friend, Mandine Muhammad of
Hey,
Pro.
Mandine, I hope you're watching. I went to high school with Mandine. At the time, I started a project. This was way before R.A.G.E and the Resident Association of Greater Englewood. I had volunteered throughout Inglewood, and I just saw a need for a space for young people to also connect with our elders. And it wasn't many spaces like that. And so we decided to use film and art as a way to connect these two groups that are typically either fearful of each other or have a misunderstanding of each other. And so we watched these films, and it was called Docs and Dialogue. It was documentaries and dialogue. And it became this phenomenon in Inglewood. And I was traveling, throughout different spaces in the community. And then Mandine said, I really think you need to meet Tonika Johnson. She's in Inglewood. She's a photographer. And I wasn't thinking twice about documenting my work or documenting this process. I was writing about it on a blog, but I wasn't capturing it in film or in pictures. And so we met and clicked, and she came to a So First Saturday. Not a So First Saturday, a Talks and Dialogue convening we had at the Peace Center. And we stayed together ever since and just kept creating together.
And for me, my angle of the story is Mandine knew that myself and my then husband and two young kids had just moved back to Inglewood as new homeowners. And he knew that I was doing my own little photo walks and I was a photographer. And he suggested to me that I get connected with Asiaha. He was like, I really think you all will like click and you'll really love the work that she's doing. And he was correct. I went to Docs and Dialogue and I was like, oh, this is beautiful. Like, it was so intergenerational, youth and elders talking and discussing a documentary. And I knew from then on that this was critical history that I needed to document. And so that became my hobby, documenting not only the activity that Asiaha was doing, but also showing her my work, my photography of the neighborhood. And up until that point, I really hadn't shared it with many people because it was just my low-key hobby. So she really encouraged me continuing to do that.
Wow. I looked at her photography as like the photo album of this kind of work. And so if I wasn't able to, I'm coordinating and advertising and trying to, get presenters and do everything else, that sometimes I miss the step of documenting the work and creating this photo album that we can look back at and say, wow, that was 10 years ago. Our kids are now graduating. Or, one of the pictures she took was of my niece, Jewel Hoffman, whose birthday is today. I think about that picture you took. And she was what, 8 or like, she's so young.
Now she's 18.
Yeah, she's 18. And so it continued to grow and continue to evolve. And Tonika was one of many residents who was drawn to Docs and Dialogue that made us say, hey, maybe we need to start something of our own. And that's what made us start R.A.G.E.
But I must add this.
Please.
Because Asiaha is who she is, she had to interview me and ask me, what is it you'd like to do in the community? And I was like, I don't know. And I told her, I thought about it and I said, well, I've always wanted to start like a journalism program for youth in Inglewood, because I, as a youth in Inglewood, had to travel outside of Inglewood to go access these artistic resources. And she said, we can make that happen. I was like, what? A free journalism program? Where and how? She's like, you can be.
Oh, we did.
We did. She said, you can be the teacher. I can find the students and we can access the library as a resource to hold this program, and we did. It was an 8-week journalism program called Media in Motion. That was my first time really consistently doing of being a teaching artist, and we had 3 cycles of it, so for a whole year. So that was me getting introduced into the kind of immersed work of Inglewood that she does, and I just got addicted to it. So yes.
Wow. So, I mean, that actually really leads nicely into this next question, because I think what you all talking about Inglewood and the focus on that, that is the focus of the conversation today. But, you know, we actually got a question that kind of intersects with my next question. Gabriel Tyler, who I believe is a mutual friend.
Yes.
And I like the way Gabriel put it even better than I did. So I'm going to ask Gabriel's question, but, you know, throw mine in there as well. So Gabriel says this pandemic has exposed a lot about how inequitable things are in cities like Chicago, especially for Black and Latinx residents. And so there's a part 2 to that question, but I do want to sort of focus on that, the expose word, because we know that there's a lot of this that we're experiencing that is not new. You know, I know way before the COVID-19 pandemic, Aisha, I've heard you talk about Inglewood as an outcast community. Tonika, you've done a lot to showcase, you know, Inglewood in a positive, more human light through your photography. And, you know, we've heard these stories about Inglewood specifically. It does get used as a code word for a lot of the issues in the city. You know, we're talking about Greater Inglewood. That's a huge part of the city that has a lot of complexities and nuances. So we would love to hear from you. Just what was life like in Inglewood before the pandemic, and how did it come to be?
Wow, such a beautiful question. Well, I would say just right before the pandemic, I truly felt like there was a growing, developing movement of concerned residents connecting through R.A.G.E. I was starting to meet more people outside of Inglewood who was interested in knowing how to understand the history of how Inglewood became this way. So I personally felt like we were on a path to really elevating some important issues and starting projects and programs like Grow Greater Inglewood. I was expanding Folded Map to really like be a voice. I just felt like there was a really good momentum of what has been existing here, which is community building and development. And the pandemic just kind of put a halt to us really exposing in a different light some of the issues that we have been historically dealing with, but sharing it with the larger Chicago public in a different way that helps people understand just the core human element of it, which is this is a neighborhood like a lot of other predominantly Black neighborhoods that have been neglected. And we were beginning to share that information in a new way with a different population of people. So that's how I felt right before the pandemic.
Yeah, I really can echo the same thing. Our work, you know, it's been now like a decade. And so in a community like Inglewood, where, you know, I look out my window, it's a vacant house, the weeds are growing to, you know, 6 inches, our schools are closed. It's not a bustling commercial corridor. I've said it before, it was already in a sense of devastation. Our crime could be rapid at times, but we had worked through those systems because we knew it wasn't the residents that were the perpetrators. It was a system that we are part of. And so with this system, it was all this inequity, and we found creative and innovative ways to expose the inequity. But when you have this kind of global pandemic, now people are like, whoa, wait a minute. Black and brown people are dying at an alarming rate. And we had already talked about the life expectancy of someone in Inglewood
versus Streeterville.
We've done an article about that. We've talked about housing. So I know for me, my focus has always been with the people here who are living in that, who are in that space, how to pull them out of that space to let them know that regardless of this system, there's still hope, there's still neighbors, there's still friends, there's still connectivity. And so when the pandemic kind of came and kind of put a fork in that, we have to really think quickly about how do we still have that sense of community and community building and connectivity. And that's hard when you are faced with so much fear of even touching your brother or your sister, or hugging your mother. Like the simple task of hugging your mother is now in question. It made us reflect a lot, because everything we've been doing is around a cultural upliftment through these systems. And so it set us back, but I also think it also allowed us to be even more resilient. Like, hey, Inglewood, we lost 6 schools in 2013. Unfortunately, we have, very little, most people are not working. We could get through this too. And it's ways to get through this too. And I think that's what we've been trying to focus on how we can get through this and get through this together.
And then to even add, I personally felt like, this is a global pandemic. However, this pandemic allowed other people in a very unusual way to understand what we have been dealing with in Inglewood. We've had many pandemics in Inglewood, and it was only a matter of time before the statistics revealed that, again, our neighborhood was hardest hit. And unfortunately, that wasn't a surprise. But now I think the commonality is we're all going through this together. So now people can understand, this is what Inglewood and neighborhoods like it on the South Side and West Side have been dealing with. The inability to connect to resources that you need. Now we all know what that feels like. So I think post-pandemic, it'll be a great starting point for all of us to understand what it's like to not be able to get what you need in order to survive, really.
Yeah. No, I want to come back to that point about post-pandemic, actually, but I want to save that for later and kind of sit in this moment of what it's like right now. I think one of the things that's hard for a lot of people is how politicized this moment is becoming. Like so many things that has a real cost of lives. With Inglewood sitting in 4 different wards, with the mayor had five. Sorry,
we had 6, but 6.
Okay.
5.25.
Yeah.
Okay. Educate me. Like what are the politics?
It's too many. It's still too many.
So that was one of the premises.
Are people with glory, or where they at? What's going on?
One of the premises. Well, that was one of the premises why R.A.G.E became a group, because we all felt like, regardless that we were divided into these these boundaries of wards, we were still one neighborhood. We're West Englewood and Inglewood together, 60621 and 60636. We are all one. We don't care that the 20th ward is across the street. We're all one. So that was actually one of the premise. And we said, hey, we need a rep from each of the wards to be our co-founders. And we had about 2 or 3 from each one to have 13 of us who founded R.A.G.E. So, and that still exists, right? So, but I think the groundwork that we was able to start in 2010 about looking at us as one whole community, and regardless of the ward, you have to make us a priority. Really has resonated, I think, at least with this new wave of our aldermen, currently, because they did a unified town hall that we tried to do. We were new. So they wasn't listening to us, but we said, hey, we need all the aldermen to meet at one time. But they did it, and it's great. And I was on a call with them yesterday, and they all are saying the same thing. And that wasn't the case in 2010. And so I think those seeds that we were able to plant were really helpful. But for Inglewood, like what we go through, I mean, we're here, we're on 66th and Union right now. This hasn't really resonated with a lot of folks in Inglewood because of their survival mechanisms and things they go through every day. I don't think the outpour of the long-term effect of this pandemic has really happened yet. We are being very mindful of the summer months, that some of the pandemic, the peak of some other things may happen during those months when resources are totally dried up and folks are not able to go into certain homes, and grandma or auntie or uncle are not taking care of them and giving them $5 or $10 every day. How that may spill out into the community, but we're watching it, and we're in conversations with our 7 district police department and with so many other community partners to kind of keep an eyeball on what that may look like, the peak that may happen in Englewood due to this sense of desperation and really a total lack of access to resources.
That's a really good point. I want to get a little bit more into what you're just talking about in terms of like, what are the specific challenges if it's maybe a little, maybe the long-term effects are going to be the things that people grapple with later. What are people really grappling with now? Or is it just like, it's, like it was before? Are there specific challenges that you're seeing and that you're identifying, that are different now, aside from some of the things that you talked about already?
Yeah, I would say to credit what the organization's Teamwork, Englewood, R.A.G.E, and Iman are doing with distributing groceries. That need, food accessibility, first and foremost, that just shot up way more, to the point that R.A.G.E had to essentially become like a warehouse and delivery of free groceries, because there is a significant need. People have a loss of income in a neighborhood that was struggling with high unemployment. And for the ones that are employed, they are essential workers. So it's just a very complex situation. And I would say, in my observation, the need for food, the basics, has increased dramatically.
Yeah, I totally agree. This community was already vulnerable in terms of asthma, in terms of anything in regards to our respiratory system. And so folks are really fearful that, folks may not make it if they are tested positive for COVID. It's been studies around the Norfolk Southern and the CXS, trains that come through Inglewood, that a lot of folks here have high, asthma rates and issues, diabetes, everything that we've seen on the news that really accelerate, the death tolls, were already kind of here and embedded in the homes. Also talking to people, we do a survey and to really ask people, what are they looking for? What are their needs? How they feeling? What are their mental wellness? And it was people already on the brink of just stress and anxiety. And so this is taking them over the top. And as Tony said, those working poor, working class or middle class folks, they're having issues, which I hear daily on the phone, with the unemployment. Some folks didn't get stimulus. Some folks, it's just been like situations that just added on to like this everyday struggle that we had to just stop and just say, how could we assist with like these fundamental things? Folks are still gathering. People are, unfortunately, crime is still happening. The agitation of being together, we call it Corona arguments. You're gonna have a Corona argument. If you're together all the time, it's gonna pop off. But unfortunately, the way that some folks here deal with confrontation is pulling out a gun. So we were together yesterday, we heard 10 shots yesterday. And I'm like, we're social distancing, what's happening? And also in terms of housing, which I'm a landlord, I've been a landlord for almost 20 years now. Folks are doubled up anyway. So social distancing doesn't really apply to folks in Inglewood who are living with 2 or 3 families in a house. And folks are going outside and they're not being protective. So all those things are things that we know, are unfortunately a forecast because of the system and the disinvestment that has happened in this community for over 30 years, that something like this is just really gonna put the light on how people have been living.
Yeah.
And then also in regards to just like mental health and self-care and comfort, it's very difficult for a community like Englewood to offer that to each other when you have so many blocks that don't even have lots of residents. So I was looking at, you know, the YouTube video in Italy and in New York and even on the north side of Chicago, where they're singing, that can offer, you know, some sense of kind of normalcy and togetherness. That's something we can't do in Inglewood because we have so many blocks that you don't have enough residents to even do it. We can't play bingo games in the window. We can't have a sing along. And, you know, for me as a creative, it's frustrating to know that I can't offer that, or I can't coordinate something like that to offer a point of just relief to the community. I mean, just imagine how beautiful it would be if we were able to sing a Frankie Beverly and Mays song, you know? And we can't. Those are simple things, simple points of relief that we can't offer.
Right. I'm glad you brought up stress and mental health, because we know that's a vicious cycle, right? When you're stressed, that actually makes you more vulnerable. Your immune system's weakened, and you know, it just adds to people's vulnerability, and then that adds more stress. So it really is a vicious cycle. And you know, going back to checking in with you both, one of our audience members actually asked a question about how you all are managing your stress. We asked specifically to Aisha, but I'm interested in hearing on both of you, how you're, especially being in a position where so much of the community is dependent on you and your ability to deliver services to relieve, you know, some of the conditions.
Yeah, so I do a few things. I think before this pandemic, I had things that I would make a priority to balance my life out. I do give a lot, and so I have to restore the energy that I give out all the time. And so sometimes it's just solitude. It's now my normal thing. What's become the new normal. I walk to the park. I used to, you know, did not walk to the park. I used to go to my gym, drive to a gym that was out of the neighborhood. But now I take my time to walk through the park. I pay attention to the flowers. I pay attention to the trees. I pay attention to the people sometimes that I see and you know, walking past. I really embrace the nature and the calmness of nature. Music is my life. Thank God I have a husband as a DJ. I'm very privileged that I get to hear, you know, nice music. I love dancing, so I continue to dance. We label everything something. So now we have a thing that we call community happy hour. So we, after a long day at our factory now, we do our community happy hour. Sometimes we go live on Facebook. That's fun, interactive. Talking to my mother, just, you know, calling her and seeing how she's doing and just hear her voice. And just being with my family and the people close to me. Also, us doing the food deliveries, the messages, the phone calls, the hearing sometimes the real struggles that other people are going through right now. Yesterday, I talked to someone who lost their father to COVID on Thursday, and me reflecting and saying how grateful I am and being appreciative of that, and reminding myself every day, what are you appreciative? You're not in the hospital, you have a home, you have people that you can be around and laugh, you can dance, you can move. Just really always going back to that space to have gratitude and appreciation, regardless of the situation that's happening.
And she's been better at that than me. You know, the first week after our grocery run, I came up with a list of, you know, what I could do each day, like I'm a kindergartner. You know, I was like at 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, she had to make a little schedule.
That was the first week. The second week, my happy thoughts started to kind of disappear. I was just, I started struggling with anxiety and insomnia. I had never had that ever before. So it was new to me. And I was joking with Aisha, like, I've always been the type of person that could go to sleep on demand. Like,
she take naps and everything.
Naps. I don't mind waiting for people. I'm like, I'll just take a nap. And I couldn't do it. And it was really bothering me. And, if I didn't have my friends and family FaceTime as an outlet, my artist friends, I really didn't think I was gonna pull out of it. It took 2 weeks of going through that for them to tell me, you need to figure out how to manage this, because this is a problem. Like, you need sleep.
Well, my advice was, this is my advice. I told you I'm a corona counselor. Is that you get in mode of grief. This is a grieving process. We've seen all the reports. Like, we're grieving the life that we used to know. And with grief, you go through stages. You just don't stay there. And I just told her, just don't stay there. You can go, it's okay to go.
Yeah.
But you can't stay in that, I call it a tunnel. You can't stay in that tunnel. It's light out of that tunnel. And and then what I did too, I played videos that just explain exactly what this is scientifically, like how do you get it? What are the things that we could do to prevent it? What are the things that we can intake in our bodies that can help us kind of fight it off? Make little jokes about it just to get some laughter going. Because we both had daughters graduating, and this has been devastating. We both have a class of 2020 graduates, and they're girls. We can't explain to them you won't have a graduation, right? And so when we had to be strong for them, that kind of, kicked us out of our little depression to say, hey, they don't understand at, 18 and at 22, graduating from college and high school, that they can't walk down the aisle. And it's still very hurtful for us. And we're just trying to figure out ways to comfort them, knowing that they, won't have this traditional graduation.
Yeah.
And then also I had to accept the fact that I was struggling with insomnia, and I had to take medication to get sleep. And once I accepted that I had insomnia as a result of anxiety, and took medication to go to sleep, after having that first night of 5 hours of sleep, I started to feel like, oh my gosh, such a relief. And each day that went by, I got another hour more of sleep, and I started feeling rejuvenated enough to be like, okay, I want to, interact with, other friends virtually.
Check her emails. She was like,
I
check
totally
my emails now.
Dropped off on emails. I didn't even go into the laptop at all. And I was checking emails, and I was like, oh, these are so sweet. People are interested. I had a friend who wanted to do a beautiful project, do a portrait sitting session virtually, where she painted artists that she wanted to interact with, and I participated in that. I started accepting, invites to do some virtual engagement, and that really did pick me up, and really talking to my artist friends who are also self-employed, and sharing our struggles and what that feels like and what they're doing creatively to get out of it. That really helped me. But it was a dark 2 weeks. Aisha and her family had a lot of work to deal with me.
Okay,
I hear you. I mean, even down to the kindergartner part. I'll just share a quick story. I share space with my partner, and one of the things that we did for a couple of weeks was to literally document on our chalkboard like a face, whether it was a smiley face or a happy face or a squiggly line face, just to kind of, give us some perspective that every day is different. You have some happy days, you have good days, you have bad days, and to try to, put it in perspective, because if you watch the news all the time, every day will be a bad day.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, no, it is. That's a nice way to document. I love that.
Yeah, documentation, exactly. So kind of going back to, I guess, also documentation, but thinking about you all and your role in the community and in our society. So this year, CHF's theme is vision. And we see you both as visionaries, and we look to you to tell us about the future and to shine light on things that are difficult to understand or interpret. So as we're thinking of what's the post-pandemic world, what's the post-pandemic Inglewood, what is your vision for the post-pandemic Inglewood? We know that there's a sad reality that could be possible, but we want to sort of hear from you specifically what your vision for it would be. How would this moment transform us for the better?
I think that collectively, citywide, globally, even just in the neighborhood, we will all be in a space where connection is so valuable, more valuable than what we even thought before. Chicago knows how to utilize the summertime, but now I think people will all kind of be on a leveled playing ground of wanting to get to know neighborhoods and connect with people and really learn how to understand someone else's different lived experience, especially with everyone understanding that Black and brown neighborhoods in Chicago are impacted differently with the pandemic. So I imagine that afterwards, people will be more open to learning and understanding how and why that came to be and what they can do to build a bridge to improve all of this, because it's a shame. And I think people are ashamed of this reality of inequity in Chicago. And I solely believe that we will be able to connect with each other in more intimate, empathetic ways than before. So that's what I'm hoping, and I'm looking forward to creating working opportunities that will help people do the kind of deeper connection into different neighborhoods than they were before.
Yeah, my vision, it's so some of the work has not stopped because of pandemic, because it was things that we were addressing around healthy food, around the vacant schools that we lost. So we're a part of a Go Green on Race team that's a part of this $10 million prize challenge with the Pritzker Foundation. And regardless what happens with that particular challenge, we're still moving forward with this plan to really address some of the inequities that are now on the books of people who were ignoring it before, right? And so some of these foundations and groups who are like, how can we help? We didn't know, it was such a disparity. We want to have some intentional conversations with them around, we were already in a sense of devastation and wanted support, but now, you're kind of triggered through this emotional piece going on. And so how do we really have some real partnerships and true support that's not just a parachute in with food and then go, and like really connected. For R.A.G.E, I think our connection grew deeper. I think the vision for us is these deeper connections with neighbors that we wasn't, maybe connecting with before, because, we boast about being such a group of so many talents and passions, and we've been building upon that. But I think we're more intentional and building upon that even more. And so this forced me to contact all our R.A.G.E members to see how they were doing. So how we communicate and what we do. We've been thinking about how we could use our plaza, our vacant lot, to have some type of social distance activities. But I think our work will continue. I know for me, my work will continue. It might be some things now added that has, really revealed itself through this. But getting neighbors to care about their other neighbors have always been what we wanted to do. And so this kind of forced that issue. And so we're gonna continue to force that issue, that we should care about Ms. Brown, and about, whoever else is on these blocks who at this time needed food delivered to them, or needed funding, or needed just somebody to call them and talk to them. And so if we wasn't doing that before, we'll be sure to make sure that that is how R.A.G.E continues to move, if not deeper, for the future. Some of our summer activities we're still very uncertain about, but we used to do something called Jobs on the Block, where we took over a whole entire block, a hotspot. We know we're going to have to do that again because a lot of folks have been laid off. How that looks, we're not sure, but we're really taking it day by day, and I'm still optimistic that we will get through this too. So that's that's what's going to keep me going.
And then also, I think people will appreciate and value the arts more after the pandemic, because it is very clear what has helped people get through. And so my hope is that people will, and institutions and our public school system will start to integrate arts more, or have it return to the standard school day, to help people know that this is what has sustained us, and this is a tool. The arts are a tool to not only offer stress relief, relaxation, a different understanding of complex issues. So I hope, and it is my vision, that the arts will be elevated to its rightful status as being a really useful, meaningful healing tool, an educational tool in life, that it really was shunned over the past couple of decades.
But what she's saying is so important, because this is what we have to deal with in our schools. Like, that's the first thing taken out is the arts, right? Which is the first thing that we gravitated to when we was in this state. It's the same with growing our food. Like, everybody looked at that as like a taboo thing to have gardens, right? And so now we're retreating back to that like kind of natural state. Even home economics, my mother sews, right? So she's like, I'm busy, I'm making masks every day. Those things were taken out of our schools, arts, home economics, really connecting with nature. We keep saying we know this is a reset. We're not sure what the reset was for, but it may be a reset for a brighter future that really helps us really connect with a more communal type of space than this individualism, and that we appreciate the arts, and we appreciate music, and we appreciate putting our hands in the dirt. And so I do feel like, as drastic and as devastating as this is, I do honestly feel like it's some light here that we may not see yet, but we will see it.
Everybody gonna be taking sea moss and being healthier. That's what I envision. Everybody's gonna be cooking for each other.
They thought I was crazy when I was making smoothies all the time. Now everybody's doing it, which is good.
I love it. It's so true. It's so true. I mean, it kind of goes also back to the story about how you all, connected. Is what everything you're saying is so important about documenting, and about inspiration, about, what the arts do to bring people together, but also just our humanity, like the core of us, nature and arts. These are things that serve us all equally if we allow them to, if we can break down some of these barriers. So yeah, I'm so glad that you all said that. Of course, you're a visionary, so of course you would.
No, we just tapped into what everyone is already feeling and doing, and we're just saying it, but we're all doing it.
I love it. There's so many questions in the chat box, but we are getting to the end of our time, so maybe there'll be some more questions or conversations happening in social media spaces, and this is an ongoing thing. We want to continue to stay in relationship. But I did want to sort of wrap up on a note. We talked a lot about how you all are serving your community. We have a lot of people who are watching and who will watch later who are not necessarily in Inglewood and may want to support or express solidarity, whether that's through breaking down some of these structural or systemic issues, or direct service. We want to definitely make sure that we give people opportunity to donate to R.A.G.E. We know that money, resources, are never a bad thing in these kind of situations. So that information should be in the chat box. People can just toggle right on over immediately and donate to R.A.G.E to support that. But what else can people do in this current moment that will express solidarity and hopefully contribute to some of the positive work you all are doing?
So much.
I get asked that question a lot, so I kind of know. Sometimes I think people underestimate the equity in relationships. You know, us being in Englewood, sometimes we're not able to talk to the corporations or some of the other folks who could support some of the things that we've been talking about. So those relationships and connections, you know, you can always email joinrage@gmail.com or on our website to contact us, call us directly. If you've heard something that you're like, whoa, that connects to A, B, and C, that is helpful. Spreading that word and not looking at this community from a deficit point of view, but how can I build upon the assets that they have already kind of shared in this platform and support those assets? So I would say that first. Money, of course, is helpful, but like the other day, somebody online had, oh my God, a whole truckload of boredom busters, she called them, and they were for kids and at this time. So we have over 200 to 300 people who completed our survey, and some of them said, hey, we need information, you know, things for our kids to do, like our kids are bored, you know, school is not enough. So things like that. The digital divide here, you know, we have so many issues with technology here in Englewood. Folks are not able to get online. You know, those type of networks and those type of connections and partnerships will be really important to an association, a very grassroots association like R.A.G.E.
And then also to add, you know, not minimizing what correcting inappropriate conversations in your own social network can do, like pushing back on incorrect things or inappropriate things, inaccurate things that you hear, not only just about Inglewood, but about Black people who are essentially dying from this pandemic. You know, there's been a conversation around the health habits of Black people, you know, deading those conversations and learning the history of why that is so, and also educating others, sharing information to combat some of these stereotypes that are perpetuated and are inaccurate. Also, just virtually sharing the work that R.A.G.E. is doing, sharing information about Foldingmap. I recently went into my vault and started sharing some of those very same photos that I have been taking of Inglewood, and to learn that it went slightly viral was really heartwarming, because people were using it as a way to correct inaccurate and negative information about Inglewood, and using the photos not necessarily to show off the photography, but to say, this is what you don't see, and we must question why. Why don't you see this type of imagery of Inglewood? So definitely don't minimize the impact and importance of just sharing information virtually. That's really important, and I encourage people to find you know, some solace in the fact that that is something we can do.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. That was period.
No, I mean, everything, so much of this, I guess I should say, is storytelling, and you know, people's response to the story. You know, there's the virus itself, and then there's the story around it that has so many other impacts. And so that's part of the reason why we're doing this series, is really to talk to people on the ground and to really learn directly from the source. And so we just thank you for, you know, thank you again for welcoming us in, for giving us so much great information, and for sharing your vision. You're both so beautiful, and so is the work that you do. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. That's our time this evening. But we just want to encourage you all to stay safe.
That was so fast, Tiff.
That was it. I know, right? We did it.
I know.
Yeah, no, this was great. So the chat box, like I said, has just had so many great comments and conversations, and so we know
We gotta
that
look at
people
it.
are out there. Yeah, they're listening. So we'll go check out the rest of those comments, and we'll continue the conversation in social media, and we'll share all of this information and continue to have these conversations with folks. So thank you again.
Thank
wanna
you,
say any
Chicago
parting
Humanities
words?
Festival.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, she said final words. Did you say
Yeah, final words.
Oh, final words.
Oh,
I'll let her go first.
well, I would just say, in the spirit of sharing and connectivity, definitely connect with me on Instagram, Tonika J. I share, a lot of useful information, as well as some of my at-home cooking stuff that I'd love to, see what other people are doing. And then if you're interested to learn more about my project, Folding Map, go to Foldingmapproject.com. And yeah, just let's continue to engage with each other virtually.
Follow us on Instagram. I think Chicago Humanities Festival is going to share our handles, R.A.G.E_Inglewood, or us on Twitter or on Facebook. Again, tell others if you know other folks in Inglewood who want to connect with some people. We do need volunteers sometimes for our packaging and food distribution to actually deliver food to neighbors, as well as to get the packages together. We also are always looking for information that would be helpful to residents. So if it's something that you are part of that will be helpful to folks that we're delivering to, that we are very, very accessible. So I would just say that, and just shout out to everybody in Inglewood who's watching tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We probably got to think about doing this again. Part two. But no, I appreciate this platform. I appreciate everybody who tuned in. It is hard, but we could get through this. And I think if folks like us here in Inglewood, who have experienced devastation over years and decades, can still smile and still be creative and still be innovative, I think the whole world can do the same thing. So just stay positive and just write down everything that you're grateful for anytime you feel you're gonna go in that corona tunnel of depression, because it can happen. Just think about everything you're grateful for, that you appreciate. And that's helped me through it. And I give that advice to anybody who gets stuck sometimes through this space.
Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank
All
you,
right,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Virtual hugs.
Oh, it's loud.